Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to Pathfinder Kingmaker. Now, last time, we continued our exploration of the outskirts region. We've actually made some pretty solid progress over the last 2 episodes. We've cleared out 6 optional locations, we've taken on several tough encounters, and we've acquired a lot of loot that will help us in our final confrontation with the Stag Lord. Speaking of which, it's just about that time. Once we've cleared out these last 2 optional locations, we'll head back to Oleg's to take care of some last-minute preparations, and then it's finally time to set course for the Stag Lord's fortress. With any luck, we should be getting into Act 2 as of Episode 17. Anyway, let's get things started with the Trail in the Hills. Once popular, this trail now slowly melds into the surrounding wilderness. Most travelers came here via Nettles Crossing, but with its destruction, the trail has been abandoned. You'll notice that it says we've already been in there, but that's just because I had to reset all of our quick slots after the latest patch dropped. Haven't actually explored it yet though, so let's get in there and have a look. Alright, well, let's start by grabbing that loot. Not sure why it's already showing up on our map.
In due time.
Oh, nice. Yet another piece of that scorched necklace. We have to be getting close to finishing that thing by this point.
That is not far.
Okay, let's start following that path. As usual, we'll head right first. Oh, hold up. We've got a dead kobold right ahead of us.
As it should be.
And I'm assuming that's what killed him. A mature leopard. We've never actually fought one of these before, so let's make sure Valerie's in the lead.
Tear them apart! This should do it.
Yikes, that thing's actually hitting her pretty hard. Let's get Tristan on that.
Repent!
Let's see if we can wrap this up. Oh, there we go. Well, we took a few nasty hits, but we've definitely had worse. Let's see if we can actually skin this thing.
What troubles you?
Nice. Nowhere near as valuable as I thought it would be, but every little bit helps, I guess. Looks like we also found a short bow +1. Not a bad find, but not the most useful thing for our current party.
I wrote it like I saw it.
Alright, I guess that's it. Moving on. Okay, just one more location to go. Waterlogged lowland. A gloomy, soggy lowland leading into a swamp. Travelers avoid this place. The swamp is dangerous on its own, but it also tends to attract monsters and other unpleasant creatures. Notice that the description doesn't mention we've never been here before. That's a sure sign that this is actually a narrative event, rather than a map we can actually enter. Anyway, let's see what's waiting for us. We walked across the heath for a long time, yet no sight sprang up before our eyes. By turns, we discovered a verdant lowland, with several near-about springs streaming down behind another hillside. And then, in the distance, in the center of the lowland among the bush, there stood a single dry tree, a true giant. Its magnificent outline resembled an animal's paw clawing at the sky. But what was truly remarkable, the flat landscape was dotted by mysterious dark humps. They were piled about the height of a man and scattered around in abundance. We determined that we should explore the lowland. The further we trekked, the softer the land became. Step by step, heathgrass gave way to moss, low-growing shrubs and ferns, and then sloshy puddles of stinky swamp water. The muddy ground sucked at our feet, and soon our party was jumping from hassock to hassock. Finally, we reached the first group of mysterious humps and learned that they were no mere hills but dugout dwellings. We moved with great care towards the center of the lowland, and there the real swamp began. On the way towards the mysterious giant tree, we saw the foggy outline of another hut, this one much bigger and surrounded by small clay statues. We examined the surrounding dwellings. Inside, the dugouts were frowsy and dark, darker than holes, and filled with absolute desolation. There were no windows in these mud walls, no furniture or other homely items, except for the odd piece of tattered wicker. But every dwelling had a large hollow dug right in the center of the dirt floor, like a fire pit but taking up the greater part of the space. They were filled with standing water and reeked beyond description. Standing one behind another and tied together with a rope, we continued on our journey. We walked slowly, carefully choosing our way, keeping to drier ground as much as possible. But the further we went, the more difficult it became, and soon we were wading waist-deep through the cattails. Frogs croaked loudly as we peered anxiously into the cloudy water, struggling to make out what shadows flitted along the bottom. Suddenly, Silverleaf staggered, spit out an oath, and flailed his arms. He'd made a wrong step, and, unable to pull out his foot, he called out loudly and began to sink into the vile green slush. Keeping our wits, we tugged on the rope, but the poorly tied knot quickly came undone. Wary of another of us getting sucked into the bog, we decided to form a living chain. Standing next to each other and holding hands, we began to pull up our fellow traveler. Luckily, Silverleaf managed to keep his head above the water while we struggled to rescue him. Grabbing the nearest hand and pulling with all his strength, he freed first one foot and then the other. Back in the beta, we actually failed that exact same skill check, only it was Lindsay who ended up sinking. She ended up submerging almost immediately, which seems to imply they took character size into account. The insatiable bog gurgled hungrily after us, but we didn't look back. Sodden and weary, we finally made it back to solid ground, and a palace of sorts rose before our eyes. A spacious hut made of mud like the rest, but decorated with pebbles, bones, cattail spikes, and snail shells. In front of the palace was a wide and shallow reservoir. Its green water reflected the leaves of huge ferns and primitive clay figurines. The buzzing of gnats was nearly deafening. We were not far from the center of the swamp, and a firm and steady path led there through the thick bushes. At its end, that tall, dry tree stretched mightily upwards, clawing at the firmament. We carefully examined the clay figurines, trying to fathom who they might portray. Goggle eyes, flat heads with no necks, ears, or chins, ugly long legs, unnaturally bent. These sculptures could only be the work of boggards. Primitive, cruel boggard tribes had inhabited the swamps of Garund and Avestan since the olden days. Pitiless to others and to each other, they were led by the darker instincts of their insane priest kings. They are known to grow young fry in the pools inside the houses. We peeked inside the hut. The palace was twice the height of the other huts, and its entrance was wide enough that 3 could walk abreast. The walls were decorated. An unknown builder had scratched drawings in the clay while it was still wet. The faded scrawl depicted huge amphibians devouring smaller figures, some frog-headed, others not. 3 of the 4 rooms boasted large holes filled with water, just like the other dwellings, though here there were steps descending into them, cut into the dirt. In the furthest room, we found equipment decorating the walls. Leather armor, spears, clubs. To our surprise, a number of items were well preserved. The hut was clearly deserted, so we felt no shame in taking some of it with us. We moved forward, seeing we'd drawn so near our goal. It was ever so lovely to walk once again along the well-trodden path. Our soaked clothes imagined being dry, and our mood at once lifted. The bushes that bordered the path seemed to wave at us amiably, with their juicy green leaves and shiny bright red berries. A fresh wind puffed away the rotten smell, and it finally felt like the swamp might be nearly behind us. But then, the wind stopped blowing, and the thorny branches continued to move, and we heard a loud shout. Valerie, who was watching our rear, pointed to a surging, crawling wall of green, filling in the path behind us. The surrounding thicket was coming to life. Its branches reached out with a soft swishing sound. Drops of sap oozed from their thorns, gleaming in the emerald dusk. The path was disappearing. There was no way back, and the clear space ahead was closing. We ran forward as fast as our legs could carry us, flying towards the closing passage. As any experienced traveler can tell you, sometimes you walk and sometimes you run. The branches snatched at our backpacks and clothes, and the sprouts tangled at our feet, but we slipped their grasp. We were too quick. Finally, after what seemed an endless trek, we came upon the gigantic dry tree that had so intrigued us from the beginning. Lo and behold, we saw an idol cut into its trunk, a huge, horned, 3-eyed toad. Its googly eyes made it look both cruel and dumb, almost idiotic. Its muzzle hung half open, sharp-toothed with several hanging tongues. Deep brown streaks oozed from the corners of its mouth. We tried to glean what sort of idol it might be. There could be no doubt. This was Gogunta, master of the Great Swamp in the Demon Abyss. But what was this? While we were examining the idol, a large bright blue dragonfly came out of a hollow in the tree and sat invitingly on the very tip of one of our noses. It was so remarkably strange. It didn't react to our movements and seemed quite content to remain where it sat. Well, I am tempted to see what would happen if we actually swallowed that thing, but this is a demon we're talking about. I think we're better off just destroying this thing and calling it a day. Yeah, I can't really justify trying it. The idol reeked of evil, to say the least. We were certain we must destroy it. Clearly, we could not leave such an obscenity unscathed. We drew our swords and slashed at the wooden face, and from it oozed black, sticky blood. We heard a great clap of thunder, and a thick fog arose from nowhere. The birds screamed furiously. More thunder soon followed, and with each strike the sky grew darker and darker. Soon we couldn't see the sun through the fog. The air shuddered again, but was it still thunder or the creaky voice of the monstrous toad? Still, our iron blades dug deep into the blood-soaked wood, and at last, the idol was smashed into splinters. The fog cleared away and silence descended. Suddenly, we realized that every frog in the swamp had gone quiet. We turned almost with a sigh of relief, and saw that the flesh-eating bush had withered away. Satisfied with a job well done, we returned to where we'd come from. Well, I guess that's it then. I was expecting a little more, but that's fine. Alright, let's get back to Oleg's. Oh, hold on. Okay, our entire party is cursed now. No good deed goes unpunished. Unfortunately, we can't actually remove curses until we hit level 5, but we do have a handful of potions. I'll see what we can do about this once we get back to the trading post. Alright, let's go have a chat with Oleg.
In due time.
A fine day to you. What brings you by? Tuskgutter is dead. You could mount his head on the wall as a trophy. Oleg looks at the blood-stained boar's head with respect, touching its tusk with his finger to test how sharp it is. That's one heck of a beast. I'd love to have a trophy like that, but a deal is a deal. The head goes to old Benson, and his bounty goes to you. Well, that was quick. Thank you, Oleg. Alright guys, that's the last side quest for Act 1. At this point, all we have left is confronting the Stag Lord. Let's hit the pause button real quick while I take care of some bookkeeping, mostly inventory stuff. After that, we're setting our sights on the Stag Lord's ford. Okay, we sold our loot, stocked up on supplies, and spent all our money on a new flaming crossbow for Lindsay, so I think we're just about as ready as we're ever going to be to take on the Stag Lord. Let's get out to the world map and start heading for his fortress. Oh, and before I forget, I did manage to get the curses off most of our party. Unfortunately, we just didn't have enough for everyone, so we'll have to be extra careful with Lindsay and Tristan. We've got a pretty long trek ahead of us, so odds are we'll probably run into a random encounter or two.
May we have a moment of respite?
No. Wow, we actually made it. Alright, let's get some rest, and then we've got enough time to clear out part of the fortress. We're headed into a pretty tough fight here, so let's go ahead and cook up some seasoned wings. That'll grant us some extra hit points, so it should help offset that curse of frailty. Get some rest, heroes. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. The Stag Lord's Fort, a well-fortified bandit stronghold and the residence of the Stag Lord himself, built on the site of ancient Iobarian ruins. Alright, let's do this. Okay, looks like we've got some sort of cliff or ledge over here. Otherwise, looks like a medium-sized map. Let's start following this path here and we'll play things by ear.
That is not far.
Oh. Hey, it's Cecil. Man, it's been a while.
Now, this is a surprise. I'm on my way to pay the Stag Lord a visit, and I don't expect it to be a friendly one. How about we go together? I'd appreciate some help during the fight.
Why did you decide to rebel against the Stag Lord?
I used my head, finally. I grew up in Restov, choking on hypocrisy. The Aldori make like these brave, noble defenders of justice. But they're afraid to do so much as bark at Shatova. The Stag Lord? He seemed different. Mighty, menacing, like a huge wave rolling toward the shore. He said he'd build a new kingdom here, and anyone brave enough to fight under his banner would get a new life. But now? Now he just sits in his fortress, drinking away and plumbing his bedroom pillows for some queen of his. Though, I can't say if she's real or just a symptom of his drunken delirium. I trusted him. In his name, I almost got Svetlana killed. The only living soul who's been kind to me. I was wrong, and I want to right that wrong with my own hands. I will free these lands of Stag Lord.
Well, better late than never. So, what's your plan?
What's the plan? A fight's a fight. They'll let me and anyone with me inside the fort. No questions asked. Once we're in there, we call out the Stag Lord and tell him it's time to demonstrate his royal ambitions.
Direct attack might not be the best option. I'll look for other ways to enter the fort. Stay alert and join me when you hear the sounds of fighting.
Fine. Just don't take long.
Cecil kicks at a small stone on the ground. Well, good to know we have some allies. That should make things a little easier for us. There's some thylacines. That's a nice warm-up fight.
Let us strike as one! For Gorum!
A calculated risk.
Poor guys. Yeah, that's fine. They're only worth like 2 gold anyway. A human's corpse with signs of torture. Perhaps it was a bandit's prisoner, or even one of them, punished for some misdeed. Sounds about right. That gets us some minor treasure.
As it should be.
Okay, that is a dead end, so let's check the other direction. No guards. I'm sure there's some inside, though. We'll hold off on breaching the gate just yet. Let's, oh. Okay, we wandered into a bunch of zombies. Let's take a look at their stats real quick. Okay, this should be pretty easy. They do have 5 points of damage reduction, but that should only really affect our backliners.
You forced my hand.
Repent!
Wow, they're actually landing a few hits there. There we go. Okay, took a few hits, no big deal. We've got plenty of healing.
All according to plan.
And even more zombies.
I shall end this suffering.
Alright, let's fall back and pull them into this open area here. Hold on. Those are zombie lords. Let's just get Valerie up front and we'll just keep a close eye on things.
Do not falter!
Couldn't hurt to fire off a Bane spell, too. Actually, let's wait until there's more of them in range. Oh, geez. I may have underestimated things here. Trying not to use too many resources here, but we've got to speed this up. Okay, let's get Amiri on the defensive. Wow, we kind of got our asses kicked there.
Right here, my friend.
I'll admit, I was not expecting that.
Yes, I'm still here.
Magritium Turinos. Magritium Turinos.
Aha, and that would be our alternate
In due
entrance.
time.
We've actually got a pretty good chance of beating that mobility check, but let's hold off for now. We'll focus on clearing the outside first. We'll save the inside of the fortress for next time.
Follow my lead.
Who will prevail? Does it matter?
Alright, let's get another bomb in there. Nice.
Everywhere I go, a pall hangs over everything. Though people say it was better before I arrived.
Confide in me.
Man, thank goodness we have two clerics. Ancient ruins with signs of more recent but likewise destroyed buildings. It seems that someone tried to settle here before the bandits. Interesting.
That is not far.
I guess that would be the Iobarian ruins, whatever those are.
In due time.
Alright guys, I think that's pretty much everything. Let's get back over to that breached wall, and then I think it's time to hit the pause button.
This requires your attention.
That's a nice surprise. Okay, I think that brings us to a pretty good stopping point for the episode. We'll hit the pause button for now, but we'll pick up here next time, as we infiltrate the fortress, fight our way through a bandit army, and finally confront the Stag Lord himself. See you then. Oh, and remember, although I do love playing Pathfinder Kingmaker, you can find out more about the game by visiting the official website, the official YouTube channel, the official Discord channel, the fan-run wiki, or the original crowdfunding campaign over on Kickstarter. Links are in the description.